Life had always been a series of predictable patterns for me. My name is Alex, and for the longest time, I believed in the sanctity of marriage, the strength of commitment, and the unwavering bond of love. Melissa, my wife, was the epitome of beauty and grace. She was not only stunning, but also an exceptional cook, and our sex life was nothing short of fantastic. To an outsider, our life might have seemed like a fairy tale. We met during our college years. I was majoring in business administration, while she was an art major with a minor in culinary arts. From the moment we met, I was captivated by her charm and elegance. She had a way of making every moment feel special, and her culinary skills only added to her allure. We got married soon after graduation, and life seemed perfect. I landed a job at a prestigious financial firm, and Melissa started her own catering business. We bought a beautiful house in a quiet suburb, and everything seemed to fall into place effortlessly. We were that couple that everyone envied, young, successful, and deeply in love. However, as years went by, I began to notice subtle changes in Melissa. She started coming home late, citing her growing business as the reason. While I was proud of her success, something felt off. Our conversations became shorter, and she seemed distant, often engrossed in her phone or lost in thought. I tried to brush off these feelings as paranoia, but the nagging suspicion lingered. One evening, as I sat in our living room waiting for her to return, I found myself consumed by doubt. She had been acting increasingly aloof, and our once passionate nights had become rare. I decided to confront her, hoping it was just a phase. "Melissa, we need to talk," I said as she walked through the door. She looked at me with a hint of annoyance. "Can it wait, Alex? I'm exhausted." "No, it can't. You've been distant lately, and I need to know what's going on." She sighed and sat down. "It's just work, Alex. The business is growing, and it's taking a lot out of me." I nodded, trying to believe her, but deep down, I felt there was more to it. The late nights, the hushed phone calls, and the sudden disinterest in our life together couldn't be solely attributed to work. My suspicions continued to grow, and I decided to investigate. It wasn't a decision I took lightly, but I needed to know the truth. I started by going through her phone when she was in the shower. I found messages from a man named Jason. They were casual at first, but as I scrolled further back, the nature of the messages changed. Flirty texts, late-night calls, and even plans to meet up. My heart sank. The evidence was right there, staring at me in black and white. Melissa was cheating on me. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to gather more evidence. I needed to be sure before I took any drastic steps. Over the next few weeks, I started following her. I knew it was wrong, but my need for the truth overpowered my guilt. I followed her to restaurants, hotels, and even to Jason's house. Each time, my suspicions were confirmed. They were having an affair. Armed with undeniable evidence, I decided it was time to confront Melissa. I chose a quiet evening when we were both at home. "Melissa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her phone, sensing the seriousness in my tone. "What's wrong, Alex?" "I know about Jason," I said, holding up my phone with the incriminating messages displayed. Her face turned pale, and she stared at the phone in disbelief. I can explain," she stammered. "Explain? You've been lying to me, cheating on me, and now you want to explain?" My voice was rising, anger bubbling to the surface. She broke down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Alex. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. It just happened! That's your excuse!" I shouted. "You've betrayed our marriage, everything we built together!" After the confrontation, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the same bed as her. I moved to the guest room, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and revenge. Sleep eluded me as memories of our life together played like a broken record in my head. Each happy moment was now tainted by the knowledge of her deceit. Around midnight, I heard Melissa moving around the house. She knocked softly on the guest room door. "Alex, can we talk, please?" I opened the door slightly, keeping my distance. "What is there to talk about, Melissa?" She looked desperate, her eyes puffy from crying. "I know I messed up. I don't want to lose you. We can work through this." "Work through this? You think we can just work through infidelity?" I couldn't hide the sarcasm in my voice. "I'm not sure that's possible." "We can go to counseling, do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you," she pleaded. Dear viewers, More than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. I shook my head, closing the door on her tearful face. I need time to think, Melissa. Just leave me alone for now. The next morning, I woke up feeling drained. I knew I had to take action. I couldn't let Melissa's betrayal destroy me. I started by consulting a lawyer. I needed to understand my options and how to protect myself financially. Melissa and I had a joint bank account, and I didn't want her to drain it. The lawyer advised me to gather all financial records and secure my assets. It was sound advice, and I wasted no time in following it. Next, I began to formulate a plan. It wasn't enough to just end the marriage. I wanted to make sure Melissa understood the gravity of her betrayal. I transferred our joint savings into a separate account, leaving only a minimal amount for household expenses. I also canceled all joint credit cards and changed the passwords to our online banking accounts. But that wasn't enough. I wanted to hit her where it hurt the most, her materialistic desires. I started giving away her designer clothes, shoes, and handbags to charity. It was petty, but it felt cathartic. I wanted her to feel the loss, to understand that her actions had consequences. With everything in place, I filed for divorce. I handed Melissa the papers one evening, watching as her face crumbled when she realized what was happening. "You're really doing this?" she asked, tears welling up in her eyes. "You brought this on yourself, Melissa," I replied coldly. "You chose material possessions over our marriage. Now, you can have all the material things you want, but without me." The divorce process was long and grueling. We fought over everything: the house, the cars, the business. Melissa's true nature emerged during these negotiations. She became vindictive, trying to take everything she could. But my lawyer was sharp, and I managed to keep most of my assets intact. During this period, I went through a phase of heavy drinking. It was my way of coping with the pain and betrayal. I would come home from work, pour myself a drink, and lose myself in alcohol. It wasn't healthy, and I knew it, but it was the only way I could numb the pain. There were nights when I hit rock bottom, the loneliness and despair consuming me. I'd stare at old photos of us, wondering how things had gone so wrong. The friends who once envied our life now pitied me. My parents were my pillars of strength during this time. They listened to my rants, offered their wisdom, and reminded me that life had to go on. One evening, as I sat with a bottle of whiskey, my father called. "Alex, you need to stop this. You're better than this. She doesn't deserve to have this power over you." His words struck a chord. I knew he was right. I had let Melissa's actions define my life for too long. It was time to reclaim my life and start anew. After the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Melissa was no longer a part of my life, but the scars of her betrayal remained. I decided to focus on rebuilding my life. I quit drinking, joined a gym, and started seeing a therapist. It was a slow process, but I knew I needed to heal. I also reconnected with old friends and family. Their support was invaluable during this time. They listened to my story, offered advice, and helped me regain my confidence. My parents were especially supportive, reminding me that I deserved better than a woman who valued material possessions over love and commitment. As time went on, I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I immersed myself in my work, taking on new projects and responsibilities. It was a welcome distraction, and it helped me regain my sense of purpose. I also started traveling, something Melissa had never been interested in. Exploring new places and meeting new people was exhilarating, and it helped me rediscover my passion for life. During one of my trips, I met someone. Her name was Emily, and she was everything Melissa wasn't. She was kind, down to earth, and had a genuine interest in people. We started dating, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. Emily and I took things slow, building our relationship on a foundation of trust and honesty. We had long conversations about our values, our dreams, and our fears. It was refreshing to be with someone who valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide. One evening, we sat on the porch of a cozy cabin in the mountains, watching the sunset. "Alex, I know you've been through a lot," Emily said, holding my hand, "but I'm here for you, and I want us to build something beautiful together." Her words were a balm to my wounded soul. I knew I had found someone special, someone who truly understood me. Despite my efforts to move on, Melissa occasionally tried to reach out, expressing moments of regret. She would send messages or call, hoping to rekindle something that was long dead. "I'm sorry for everything, Alex," she said during one such call. "I was wrong, and I see that now. Can we at least be friends?" "Melissa, it's too late for that," I replied. "I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same." Her arrogance and hypocrisy were too much to bear, and I had no desire to revisit that chapter of my life. Instead, I focused on building a future with Emily. We traveled together, shared our passions, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. I found joy in the simple things: cooking dinner together, hiking through nature, and planning our future. I also continued to work on myself, attending therapy sessions and reflecting on my past mistakes. I learned to forgive myself for ignoring the red flags in my marriage with Melissa. It was a painful lesson, but it made me stronger. One of the most important lessons I learned was the importance of trust. In my relationship with Emily, we made it a point to communicate openly and honestly. We shared our thoughts and feelings, no matter how difficult the conversation might be. "Trust is the foundation of any strong relationship," Emily once said. "Without it, everything falls apart." She was right. Trust was something Melissa had shattered, but it was something I was determined to rebuild with Emily. As Emily and I continued our journey together, we faced challenges, but we faced them as a team. Whether it was dealing with work stress or personal struggles, we supported each other every step of the way. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, as we sat by a campfire under a starlit sky, Emily turned to me. "Alex, I love you. I'm grateful for every moment we share." "I love you too, Emily," I replied. "You've given me a second chance at happiness." Through my journey with Emily, I also reconnected with myself. I rediscovered hobbies and interests that I had neglected during my marriage with Melissa. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. It was therapeutic, allowing me to express my emotions in a creative way. Emily encouraged me to pursue my passions, and she even joined me in some of my hobbies. We painted together, cooked together, and explored the world together. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and love. Looking back on my marriage with Melissa, I realized I had ignored several red flags. Her obsession with material possessions, her increasing detachment, and her blatant disregard for our relationship were all signs that I had chosen the wrong partner. But hindsight is always 20/20. I learned valuable lessons from my experience. I learned the importance of communication, trust, and mutual respect in a relationship. I also learned to trust my instincts and not ignore the signs of trouble. Most importantly, I learned that my worth wasn't tied to another person's actions. Melissa's betrayal didn't define me. It was just a painful chapter in my life. As Emily and I planned our future together, I felt a sense of optimism and hope that I hadn't felt in years. We talked about our dreams, our goals, and the life we wanted to build together. It was a stark contrast to the materialistic life I had with Melissa. Emily's genuine love and support helped me heal. She was my rock, my confidant, and my partner in every sense of the word. Together, we faced the future with confidence and determination. One day, I received an unexpected letter from Melissa. She wrote about her regrets, her mistakes, and her desire for forgiveness. It was a heartfelt letter, but it came too late. I read the letter carefully, reflecting on our past. While I appreciated her honesty, I knew I couldn't let her back into my life. I had moved on, and so had she. I wrote a short reply, wishing her well, but making it clear that our paths had diverged for good. It was the closure I needed, a final goodbye to a chapter of my life that had been both beautiful and painful. With Melissa firmly in the past, I embraced the present and the future with Emily. We continued to build our life together, cherishing each moment and looking forward to the adventures ahead. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our favorite spot, Emily turned to me. "Alex, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being my partner in this journey." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. "And I'm grateful for you, Emily. Here's to a future filled with love and happiness." As the years passed, I found myself in a place of stability and joy. The pain of Melissa's betrayal had faded, replaced by the love and happiness I found with Emily. We continued to explore the world, build our home, and support each other through life's challenges. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that every experience, no matter how painful, had shaped me into the person I was today. I was stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And most importantly, I had found a partner who truly understood and valued me. Through my experiences, I learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. I learned the importance of choosing a life partner carefully, of recognizing red flags, and of valuing myself. These lessons were hard-earned, but they made me a better person. As I continued my journey with Emily, I carried these lessons with me, determined to build a life based on mutual respect, trust, and love. Together, we faced the future with optimism and hope, ready to embrace whatever came our way. One of the most important lessons I learned was the power of forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but also forgiving myself. I forgave Melissa for her betrayal, understanding that holding on to anger and resentment would only hurt me. I forgave myself for the mistakes I made, for ignoring the signs, and for allowing myself to be hurt. Forgiveness was a powerful tool in my healing process. It allowed me to let go of the past and focus on the present and the future. It was a lesson I carried with me, a reminder that healing and growth come from within. As Emily and I continued our journey together, we found joy in the simple things: a walk in the park, a shared meal, a quiet evening at home. These moments of happiness were a stark contrast to the turbulent times I had faced during my marriage with Melissa. I learned to appreciate these moments, to find joy in the everyday, and to cherish the love and support I had with Emily. It was a lesson in gratitude, a reminder that true happiness comes from within. As I looked forward to the future with Emily, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. We had plans, dreams, and goals that we were determined to achieve together. It was a new chapter in my life, one filled with hope and promise. Together, we faced the world with confidence, ready to embrace whatever came our way. It was a journey of love, trust, and mutual respect, and I was grateful for every moment. Looking back on my journey, I realized how far I had come. From the pain and betrayal of my marriage with Melissa to the love and happiness I found with Emily, it had been a journey of growth and self-discovery. I learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. I learned the importance of choosing a life partner carefully, of recognizing red flags, and of valuing myself. These lessons were hard-earned, but they made me a better person. As the years went by, Emily and I continued to build our life together. We faced challenges, celebrated successes, and supported each other through it all. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and love. Reflecting on my journey, I felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. I had found a partner who truly understood and valued me, and together we built a life filled with love and happiness. Looking forward to the future, I felt a sense of optimism and hope. Emily and I had plans, dreams, and goals that we were determined to achieve together. It was a new chapter in my life, one filled with promise and possibility. Together, we faced the world with confidence, ready to embrace whatever came our way. It was a journey of love, trust, and mutual respect, and I was grateful for every moment. As I thought about the legacy I wanted to leave behind, I realized it wasn't about material possessions or achievements. It was about the love and relationships I had built, the lessons I had learned, and the person I had become. I wanted to be remembered as someone who valued love, trust, and mutual respect. Someone who learned from their mistakes, grew from their experiences, and built a life filled with happiness and fulfillment. As I sat with Emily, reflecting on our journey together, I felt a sense of contentment and peace. We had faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and built a life filled with love and happiness. It was a journey of growth and self-discovery, a testament to the power of love and resilience. And as we looked forward to the future, I knew that whatever came our way, we would face it together. With each passing day, Emily and I continued to build our life together. We faced new challenges, celebrated new successes, and supported each other through it all. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and love. As we looked forward to the future, we felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. We had plans, dreams, and goals that we were determined to achieve together. It was a new chapter in our journey, one filled with promise and possibility. In the years that followed, Emily and I continued to nurture our relationship. We learned to communicate better, to understand each other's needs, and to support each other through life's ups and downs. Our love grew stronger with each passing day. Reflecting on my journey, I realized how far I had come. From the pain and betrayal of my marriage with Melissa to the love and happiness I found with Emily, it had been a journey of growth and self-discovery. As I sat with Emily, looking out at the sunset, I felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. We had built a life filled with love and happiness, and I was grateful for every moment. It was a journey of growth and self-discovery, a testament to the power of love and resilience. And as we looked forward to the future, I knew that whatever came our way, we would face it together. The end. Life with Lisa was, in many ways, a dream. She was beautiful in a way that turned heads wherever we went. Her laugh was infectious, her cooking was exquisite, and the sex was nothing short of extraordinary. We had been married for 7 years, and it often felt like a fairy tale. My friends envied our relationship, and I had every reason to believe we were the perfect couple. At least that's what I thought. Lisa and I met at a friend's party. She was wearing a red dress that hugged her figure in a way that made her seem almost too perfect to be real. I remember thinking how lucky I was when she smiled at me across the room. We started talking, and before long, we were inseparable. Our courtship was whirlwind, filled with spontaneous trips, long nights of passionate conversation, and an undeniable connection that seemed to promise a lifetime of happiness. For the first few years, everything was as perfect as it could be. We bought a house in the suburbs, a charming place with a big backyard and a white picket fence. We threw barbecues, hosted holiday dinners, and became the quintessential suburban couple. I was doing well at my job, and Lisa managed our home with an efficiency that made everything look effortless. Our lives were intertwined seamlessly, and I felt an overwhelming sense of contentment. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. Lisa started coming home later than usual, her excuses ranging from extra hours at work to impromptu outings with friends. Her phone, once casually left around the house, was now always with her, its screen angled away from my view. Conversations became stilted, and her laughter, once so freely shared, became rare. One night, I noticed Lisa texting someone late into the night, a small smile playing on her lips. When I asked who it was, she brushed it off with a nonchalant, "Just a friend from work." A seed of doubt was planted then, but I pushed it aside, not wanting to believe that anything could be wrong in our perfect world. Over the next few weeks, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She would get defensive over innocuous questions. Our intimate moments became few and far between, and there were whispered phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. The warmth between us had been replaced by a growing distance, and I felt an increasing sense of unease. One evening, as I was clearing out some old files in the study, I stumbled upon a receipt for a lavish dinner at a restaurant I knew we hadn't visited together. The date on the receipt was a night she had told me she was working late. My heart pounded in my chest as the pieces began to fall into place. Lisa was seeing someone else. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to gather more evidence. I started paying closer attention to her actions, her excuses, and the little details that didn't add up. I checked her phone when she was in the shower, finding texts and call logs that pointed to a man named Mark. I felt a bitter mix of anger and betrayal, but knew I needed more before I could confront her. I began following her, feeling like a character in one of those spy movies Lisa used to love. It was humiliating and painful, but I had to know the truth. One night I saw her meeting Mark at a coffee shop. They were sitting close, talking in hushed tones, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The look in her eyes was one I hadn't seen in a long time, a look of affection and intimacy. I drove home that night, my mind racing. This wasn't a one-time fling. It was a full-blown affair. The realization was a punch to the gut, but it also brought a strange sense of clarity. I needed to confront her, but I also needed a plan. The next morning I sat Lisa down at the kitchen table. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and annoyance. "About what?" she asked, her tone defensive. "About Mark," I replied, watching as her face went pale. For a moment, she seemed lost for words, but then her expression hardened. "You're being ridiculous," she said, crossing her arms. "Mark is just a friend. A friend you have secret dinners with? A friend you text late at night and call when you think I'm not around?" I retorted, my anger finally bubbling to the surface. Lisa's eyes flashed with anger. "You're spying on me now? Is that what our marriage has come to?" "I didn't start this," I shot back. "You did, the moment you decided to betray our marriage vows." There was a long silence, the tension between us almost palpable. Finally, Lisa sighed, her anger dissipating into something that looked almost like regret. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said quietly. "But things between us have been so dull. Mark makes me feel alive again." Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. Her words hit me like a physical blow. "Dull? That's your excuse for cheating on me?" "I'm not excusing it," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know how we got here, but it happened." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "So what now? Do you want to leave, or are you willing to work on fixing this?" Lisa looked down at her hands, silent for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "I care about you, but I'm not sure I can give up what I have with Mark." Her honesty was both painful and liberating. It was clear that our marriage was over, and there was no point in dragging it out. "Then I think we should get a divorce," I said, the finality of the words hanging in the air. Lisa nodded, wiping away her tears. "I think you're right." The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, dividing assets, and trying to navigate the emotional minefield that our life had become. Lisa moved in with Mark, and I stayed in the house, trying to piece my life back together. The nights were the hardest, the silence of the empty house a constant reminder of what I had lost. I started drinking more than I should have, trying to numb the pain and the sense of betrayal. It wasn't healthy, and I knew it. But at that moment, I didn't care. Friends and family tried to reach out, offering support and advice, but I pushed them away. I needed to deal with this on my own terms. One night, after a particularly heavy bout of drinking, I found myself sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by old photo albums. As I flipped through the pages, I was struck by how happy we looked, how perfect everything seemed. It was a stark contrast to the reality I was now living, and it made me question everything. Had it all been a lie? Had I been so blind to Lisa's true nature? As I sat there, wallowing in self-pity, a plan began to form in my mind. If Lisa was going to destroy our life together for her own selfish desires, then she deserved to face the consequences. I would take control of the situation and ensure that she understood the gravity of her actions. First, I went to the bank and froze our joint account. Lisa had always relied on me to manage our finances, and I knew this would catch her off guard. Next, I transferred a significant portion of our savings into a separate account under my name. I left just enough for her to get by, but not enough to support the lavish lifestyle she seemed to crave. With the financial aspect covered, I moved on to her possessions. Lisa had an extensive collection of designer clothes, shoes, and accessories, many of which were gifts from me. I packed up everything she had left behind and donated it to a local charity. It was a small act of revenge, but it felt incredibly satisfying. I also decided to get rid of some of the more valuable items around the house that we had bought together. Jewelry, electronics, and even some of the furniture went to various charities and pawn shops. Each item that left the house felt like a piece of our failed marriage being removed, and it gave me a sense of closure. Throughout this time, Lisa tried to contact me several times, but I ignored her calls and messages. I knew she was probably struggling without access to our funds, and I wanted her to feel the impact of her betrayal. It was petty and vindictive, but it was also therapeutic. One evening, as I was packing up the last of Lisa's belongings, I received a call from her. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger and frustration. "Why do you think?" I replied coldly. "You made your choices, and now you're dealing with the consequences." "This isn't fair, and you know it!" she shouted. "You can't just take everything away from me." "I didn't take everything away from you," I said calmly. "You did that yourself when you chose to betray me." Lisa was silent for a moment, and I could hear the faint sound of her crying. I never meant to hurt you, she said softly. I don't know. I was unhappy. And you thought cheating on me would fix that? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I didn't think, she admitted. I was selfish and stupid, and now I'm paying the price. Yes, you are, I said bluntly. And maybe you'll learn something from this. I hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Part of me still loved Lisa, despite everything she had done, but I knew that our marriage was beyond repair. The best I could hope for was to move on and rebuild my life. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. As the days turned into weeks, I began to pull myself out of the fog of alcohol and self-pity. I sought the help of a therapist who helped me process my feelings and understand that Lisa's infidelity was not a reflection of my worth. It was a long and painful journey, but slowly I began to heal. I started taking better care of myself, hitting the gym, eating healthier, and reconnecting with friends. I focused on my work, throwing myself into projects and finding solace in the routine. The house, once a symbol of my broken marriage, became a sanctuary of sorts, a place where I could rebuild my life. One day, while cleaning out the attic, I found a box of Lisa's things. Old clothes, trinkets, and photos, remnants of a life that no longer existed. I decided to donate them to charity, a symbolic gesture of letting go of the past. It was cathartic, and as I drove away from the donation center, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Throughout this time, Lisa would occasionally reach out. Her messages were a mix of apologies and attempts to justify her actions. She admitted to feeling guilty and regretting how things had ended, but it was clear that she was still with Mark, and their relationship seemed to be going strong. I didn't engage much with her messages, responding politely but distantly. I had no interest in rekindling any form of relationship with her. Instead, I focused on moving forward, on finding joy and meaning in my life again. In one of our final conversations, Lisa tried to explain her motives. She admitted that she had always been driven by material possessions and the thrill of new experiences. Our life, comfortable and stable as it was, had begun to feel suffocating to her. She wanted excitement, adventure, and the kind of lifestyle that Mark could provide. Her honesty, though painful, brought closure. It reaffirmed my decision to end our marriage and move on. I realized that our values and priorities had always been different, and while I had been content with a simple, happy life, Lisa had been chasing something I couldn't give her. As the months passed, I continued to focus on my healing. I took up new hobbies, traveled, and even started dating again. It was a slow process, but I eventually found someone who shared my values and goals. It was different from what I had with Lisa, more grounded, more real. Reflecting on my journey, I came to understand the importance of choosing a life partner carefully. Love and attraction are crucial, but so are shared values, mutual respect, and a commitment to the relationship. I had learned this the hard way, but it was a lesson that would guide me for the rest of my life. When I think back to my time with Lisa, it's with a mixture of sadness and acceptance. We had some wonderful times, and for a while we truly were happy. But in the end, her true motives and priorities came to light, and it was clear that we were not meant to be. Now, as I look forward to the future, I do so with a sense of hope and a newfound wisdom. Life goes on, and with it, the opportunity to build something new and beautiful. With Lisa gone and my life slowly getting back on track, I began to see things more clearly. The days of our marriage, both good and bad, replayed in my mind. I realized that while we had shared many happy moments, there were always underlying issues that we had never fully addressed. Her materialistic tendencies, her need for excitement, and my perhaps naive belief that love could conquer all. As part of my healing process, I decided to reach out to friends and family I had distanced myself from during the turmoil. Their support was invaluable, and their perspectives helped me understand that my experience was not unique. Many had gone through similar hardships, and their stories of resilience gave me hope. My parents in particular were a great source of comfort. They reminded me that life is full of unexpected challenges, and that true strength comes from how we face them. My father, a man of few words but great wisdom, simply said, "Son, it's not about how you fall, but how you get back up." I also took time to reflect on my own role in the breakdown of our marriage. While Lisa's actions were inexcusable, I couldn't ignore my own shortcomings. I had been complacent, taking our relationship for granted and not paying attention to the signs of her growing discontent. It was a humbling realization, but an important one. Determined to learn from my past mistakes, I started journaling my thoughts and experiences. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to process my emotions and gain insight into my own behavior. It was through this introspection that I began to understand the importance of self-awareness and communication in a relationship. One of the most challenging aspects of my recovery was learning to trust again. The betrayal had left deep scars, and the thought of opening up to someone new was daunting. But I knew that closing myself off to the possibility of love would only lead to a lonely existence. Gradually, I allowed myself to be vulnerable again. I went on a few dates, taking things slow and being honest about my past. Some women were understanding, while others were put off by my baggage. It was a filtering process, and I learned to value quality over quantity. During this period, I reconnected with an old friend, Emily, who had always been a source of comfort and stability in my life. Our friendship had drifted apart over the years, but we quickly fell back into an easy rapport. She had always been someone I could confide in, and her presence was a soothing balm to my wounded heart. Emily and I spent a lot of time together, and our bond grew stronger. There was a natural chemistry between us, but we were both cautious, not wanting to rush into anything. We valued our friendship too much to jeopardize it with hasty decisions. Over time, however, it became clear that our connection was more than just platonic. We had many deep conversations about life, love, and our past experiences. Emily had been through her own share of heartbreak, and we found solace in each other's company. It was a slow and steady build, marked by mutual respect and understanding. We were both aware of the importance of communication and honesty, and we made a conscious effort to address any issues head-on. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch of her house, watching the sunset, Emily turned to me and said, "You know, sometimes the best things come when you least expect them." Her words resonated with me, and I realized that she was right. Our relationship had grown naturally, without the pressure of expectations, and it felt right. As my relationship with Emily blossomed, I found myself thinking less and less about Lisa. But one day, out of the blue, I received an email from her. It was a long, rambling message filled with apologies, explanations, and regrets. She admitted that her relationship with Mark had not turned out the way she had hoped, and she was struggling with the consequences of her actions. Reading her words, I felt a mixture of emotions. There was still a part of me that felt anger and betrayal, but there was also a sense of pity. Lisa was clearly lost and unhappy, and despite everything, I couldn't help but feel some compassion for her. However, I knew that engaging with her would only reopen old wounds. I decided not to respond immediately, taking time to think about what, if anything, I wanted to say. Emily was supportive, encouraging me to do what felt right for me. After much contemplation, I wrote back a short but sincere reply. I acknowledged her pain and wished her well, but made it clear that I had moved on and was focusing on building a new life. Sending that email felt like closing a chapter. It was a final act of letting go, and it brought a sense of peace. I realized that I could not change the past, but I could control how I allowed it to affect my future. As my relationship with Emily deepened, we decided to move in together. It was a big step, but it felt right. We both approached it with a sense of caution and care, knowing the importance of maintaining our individuality while building a life together. Our home became a place of warmth, love, and mutual support. We also discussed our goals and dreams for the future. Emily shared my desire for a simple, fulfilling life, centered around family, friends, and meaningful work. We talked about the possibility of having children, traveling the world, and growing old together. These conversations brought us closer and solidified our commitment to each other. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to a cabin in the mountains. It was a chance to escape the hustle and bustle of daily life and spend some quality time together. The cabin was cozy, nestled in a serene forest, and it provided the perfect backdrop for reflection and relaxation. As we sat by the fireplace, sipping wine and talking about our future, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Emily had been a beacon of light in a dark time, and her love and support had helped me heal and grow. I realized that while my journey had been painful, it had ultimately led me to a place of happiness and fulfillment. Reflecting on my journey, I came to understand the importance of choosing a life partner carefully. Love and attraction are crucial, but so are shared values, mutual respect, and a commitment to the relationship. I had learned this the hard way, but it was a lesson that would guide me for the rest of my life. I thought back to my relationship with Lisa. In hindsight, there had been red flags that I had ignored, blinded by infatuation and the desire to build a perfect life. Her materialistic tendencies, her need for excitement, and our lack of effective communication had all contributed to the breakdown of our marriage. With Emily, things were different. We had built our relationship on a foundation of honesty, trust, and mutual respect. We communicated openly about our needs and expectations, and we made a conscious effort to nurture our bond. It wasn't always easy, but we were committed to making it work. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, I turned to Emily and said, "You know, I never thought I'd find happiness again after everything that happened with Lisa, but you've shown me that it's possible to move on and build something beautiful." Emily smiled and squeezed my hand. "We've both been through a lot, but we've come out stronger. And as long as we continue to support each other, I believe we can overcome anything." Her words were a testament to the strength of our relationship and the journey we had both undertaken. I realized that the pain of the past had not been in vain. It had taught me valuable lessons and led me to a place of true happiness. As we continued to build our life together, I remained mindful of the importance of choosing a life partner carefully. I knew that love alone was not enough. It had to be accompanied by shared values, mutual respect, and a willingness to work through challenges together. In the end, my experience with Lisa had been a painful but valuable lesson. It had taught me the importance of paying attention to red flags, communicating openly, and choosing a partner who shared my values and goals. It had been a long and difficult journey, but it had ultimately led me to a place of happiness and fulfillment. As I look forward to the future with Emily, I do so with a sense of hope and a newfound wisdom. Life goes on, and with it, the opportunity to build something new and beautiful, and for that, I am truly grateful. I always thought my life was perfect. I had a beautiful wife, a successful career, and a lovely home. We had been together for over 10 years, and I couldn't have asked for more. Our relationship seemed like a dream come true. She was not only gorgeous, but also a fantastic cook. Our physical relationship was electrifying, and our everyday life felt like a fairy tale. However, life has a way of revealing its hidden cracks when you least expect it. The first signs were subtle. She started coming home late from work more often. At first, it was a rare occurrence, and she always had a reasonable explanation. Meetings running late, traffic jams, or simply having to catch up on work. I didn't think much of it, but as these late returns became more frequent, I couldn't help but feel a pang of suspicion. Her behavior began to change. She was distant, less affectionate, and seemed preoccupied. There were strange calls at odd hours that she would either ignore or answer in hushed tones. Whenever I asked about it, she would dismiss my concerns with a casual wave, claiming it was work-related or a wrong number. I wanted to believe her, but doubt started creeping in. One evening, after another late return, we sat down for dinner. The silence was heavy, filled with unspoken words and lingering tension. I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked up from her plate, her expression unreadable. "About what?" "About us. About what's been going on lately. You've been distant, and I feel like I don't even know you anymore." She sighed, pushing her food around with her fork. "It's just work stress. I've been under a lot of pressure." "Is it really just work?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Or is there something else you're not telling me?" Her eyes flashed with irritation. "I can't believe you're accusing me of something. After all these years, you should know me better than that." But I didn't feel reassured. The doubt gnawed at me, relentless and consuming. I started paying more attention to the details, looking for any clue that might explain her behavior. I checked her phone bills, looked through her messages, but found nothing concrete. Yet, the feeling that something was amiss wouldn't leave me. Our conversations became strained, punctuated by arguments and accusations. She would get defensive, accusing me of being paranoid and controlling. I felt trapped in a cycle of suspicion and denial, unable to break free. My work started to suffer as I spent more time obsessing over the situation at home. One night, after another heated argument, I decided to follow her. She had mentioned going out with some colleagues after work, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. I waited in my car near her office, watching as she left the building. She didn't head towards the usual bar where she said she'd be. Instead, she drove to a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of town. I parked a few blocks away and watched as she entered the restaurant. Through the window, I saw her meeting a man I didn't recognize. They hugged, their embrace lingering longer than necessary. My heart sank, and a wave of nausea washed over me. I couldn't watch anymore. That night I confronted her. I told her what I had seen, expecting her to deny it or come up with another excuse. But instead, she broke down in tears, confessing to the affair. She tried to explain, saying it had started as a mistake, something she never meant to happen. But it was clear that it wasn't just a one-time thing. We spent hours talking, or rather, shouting at each other. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship was shattered. She admitted that she felt unfulfilled, that our life together had become monotonous and predictable. She said she needed excitement, something new and different. I was devastated. I had given her everything, or so I thought. But it was clear that something had been missing, something I hadn't noticed. The betrayal cut deep, and I didn't know how to move forward. We agreed to take some time apart, hoping that a separation might help us figure things out. During our time apart, I tried to focus on my own healing. I turned to drinking, using alcohol as a crutch to numb the pain. My friends and family noticed the change in me, offering their support and advice. They told me to move on, to find someone who appreciated me for who I was. But it wasn't that simple. The memories of our life together haunted me, and I couldn't let go. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. In the quiet moments, I found myself reflecting on our relationship, trying to understand where things had gone wrong. I realized that I had been too focused on providing materially, thinking that a nice house and a comfortable life were enough. I had overlooked the emotional connection, the little moments that made our bond strong. After a few months, we met again to discuss our future. She seemed different, more distant and cold. She talked about wanting to focus on her career, to pursue her own dreams and ambitions. It was clear that our paths were diverging, and there was no going back to the way things were. We decided to divorce, and the process was painful and drawn out. As we divided our assets and untangled our lives, the bitterness and resentment grew. She accused me of holding her back, of not supporting her dreams. I felt betrayed and abandoned, struggling to come to terms with the end of our marriage. After the divorce was finalized, I hit rock bottom. I spent my days in a haze of alcohol, trying to drown out the pain. My career suffered, and I withdrew from friends and family. I felt lost, unable to find a way forward. But slowly, things began to change. I started attending therapy, talking to a professional about my feelings and experiences. It was a long and difficult process, but it helped me gain some perspective. I realized that I needed to let go of the past and focus on rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, started new hobbies, and began to take better care of myself. The road to recovery was slow and filled with setbacks, but I was determined to move forward. I learned to appreciate the small things in life, to find joy in the everyday moments. Looking back, I realized that my wife's affair had been a wake-up call. It forced me to confront my own shortcomings and reevaluate my priorities. I understood that material possessions and a comfortable life were not enough to sustain a relationship. Emotional connection, communication, and mutual support were crucial. In time, I found myself again. I became stronger, more self-aware, and more appreciative of the people and things that truly mattered. I learned to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of new love. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer defined me. I often thought about my ex-wife, wondering if she had found what she was looking for. I hoped that she had, that she was happy and fulfilled. There were moments when I felt a twinge of regret, but I knew that our paths had diverged for a reason. Our story had begun like a fairy tale. We met in college, drawn to each other by an inexplicable connection. She was the life of every party, her laughter infectious, her smile captivating. I was smitten from the start. We shared dreams of a future together, dreams that seemed bright and full of promise. Our chemistry was undeniable, both emotionally and physically. It felt like we were made for each other. The early years of our marriage were filled with joy and adventure. We traveled, explored new places, and built a life that was the envy of our friends. She had a knack for turning our house into a home, her culinary skills adding a touch of magic to our everyday meals. Our intimate moments were passionate and fulfilling, reinforcing the bond we shared. However, as time went on, the demands of life began to take their toll. My career required long hours, and her job also became more demanding. We found ourselves spending less time together, our interactions becoming more about the logistics of daily life rather than genuine connection. I failed to see the signs that our once vibrant relationship was starting to fade. The turning point came when she received a promotion at work. It was a position she had worked hard for, and I was genuinely happy for her. But with the promotion came more responsibilities and longer hours. She started attending networking events and business dinners, often coming home late. I tried to be supportive, but the growing distance between us was undeniable. Our conversations became superficial, and we started avoiding the deeper, more meaningful discussions that had once been the cornerstone of our relationship. I began to feel like I was living with a stranger. Her absence was felt not just physically, but emotionally as well. I missed the woman who had once been my confidant, my partner in every sense of the word. One night, I decided to surprise her at one of her business dinners. I thought it might rekindle some of the spark that seemed to be fading. I dressed up and made my way to the restaurant she had mentioned. As I walked in, I scanned the room, searching for her. When I finally spotted her, my heart sank. She was seated at a table in the corner, laughing and leaning in close to a man I didn't recognize. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. The scene felt surreal, like something out of a nightmare. I stood frozen, unable to move or react. When she noticed me, her smile faded, and she quickly excused herself from the table. She approached me, her expression a mix of surprise and guilt. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with panic. "I wanted to surprise you," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "But it seems I'm the one who's surprised?" She tried to explain, to downplay the situation, but the damage was done. The trust that had been the bedrock of our relationship was now fractured. That night marked the beginning of a painful journey of discovery and betrayal. As the days went by, I became more vigilant. I started noticing things I had previously ignored: the secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences, the sudden need for privacy. My suspicions grew, and I confronted her again, demanding the truth. She confessed, reluctantly at first, but eventually the full extent of her infidelity came to light. It wasn't just a single affair. There had been multiple instances, each one a blow to my already fragile heart. She claimed that she felt neglected, that our marriage had become stagnant. She sought excitement and validation elsewhere. I was devastated. The woman I had loved and trusted had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The life we had built together seemed like a lie. I couldn't understand how we had reached this point. What had I done wrong? How had I failed to see the signs? We decided to try counseling, hoping that professional help might salvage our marriage. The sessions were intense and emotionally draining. We dug deep into our issues, airing grievances and hurts that had festered over the years. The therapist tried to guide us towards understanding and healing, but it was an uphill battle. Through therapy, I learned a lot about myself and my role in the breakdown of our marriage. I had been so focused on providing for us materially that I had neglected the emotional and relational aspects. I had taken her for granted, assuming that our love was unshakable. But love requires constant nurturing and effort, something I had failed to do. Despite our efforts, the wounds were too deep, the trust too shattered. We reached a point where we had to make a difficult decision. Staying together out of a sense of duty or fear of the unknown would only prolong our misery. We agreed that it was time to part ways. The divorce process was agonizing. We had to untangle our lives, divide our assets, and navigate the emotional minefield of separating after so many years together. There were moments of intense anger and bitterness, but also moments of reflection and understanding. We both had regrets, but we also knew that this was the best path forward. After the divorce was finalized, I found myself adrift. The life I had known was gone, and I had to rebuild from the ground up. I continued therapy, focusing on my own healing and growth. I stopped drinking, realizing that it was only a temporary escape that did more harm than good. I started exercising, eating better, and rediscovering the hobbies and interests I had abandoned over the years. Reconnecting with old friends was a lifeline. They reminded me of who I was before the marriage, before the betrayal. Their support and encouragement helped me see that life could still be meaningful and fulfilling. I also made new friends, people who had no connection to my past and could see me for who I was in the present. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the routine and sense of accomplishment it provided. I took on new challenges and projects, pushing myself to excel. My career flourished, and I began to regain my confidence and sense of purpose. As time passed, the pain of the betrayal began to fade. It didn't disappear completely, but it became a part of my story rather than defining it. I started dating again, cautiously at first. The experience was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. I had to learn to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of new love. I met several women, each with their own unique qualities and quirks. Some dates were disastrous, others promising. I took things slow, not wanting to rush into anything serious. I wanted to make sure that I had truly healed and was ready for a new relationship. In my interactions with these women, I was more mindful of my own needs and boundaries. I communicated more openly and honestly, not wanting to repeat the mistakes of the past. I learned to listen, to be present, and to appreciate the little moments that make a relationship special. Through these experiences, I gained a deeper understanding of what I wanted in a partner and in a relationship. I realized the importance of compatibility, shared values, and mutual respect. I wanted someone who would be my equal, my partner in every sense of the word. Someone who would support me, challenge me, and grow with me. Eventually, I met someone who felt different. Our connection was immediate, and our conversations were effortless. She was kind, intelligent, and genuine. We shared similar interests and values, and there was a sense of ease and comfort between us. We took our time getting to know each other, building a foundation of trust and understanding. Our relationship blossomed, and I found myself falling in love again. This time, I was more aware of the effort required to maintain a healthy and fulfilling partnership. I made sure to communicate openly, to express my appreciation, and to nurture the emotional connection between us. The journey to recovery was not without its challenges. After the divorce, I often found myself grappling with a range of emotions: anger, sadness, regret, and even moments of nostalgia. I missed the good times, the moments of laughter and intimacy that we had shared. It was difficult to reconcile those memories with the betrayal and pain that had come later. My friends and family played a crucial role in my healing process. They were there to listen, to offer advice, and to provide a shoulder to lean on. Their unwavering support helped me navigate the dark days and reminded me that I was not alone. They encouraged me to seek therapy and to take the time I needed to heal. Therapy was a lifeline. It provided a safe space to explore my feelings, to understand the dynamics of my past relationship, and to work through the trauma of infidelity. My therapist helped me see that I was not to blame for my ex-wife's choices, that her actions were a reflection of her own issues and not a judgment of my worth. This understanding was liberating and allowed me to start letting go of the anger and resentment. As I began to heal, I focused on rediscovering myself. I started pursuing hobbies and interests that I had neglected over the years. I took up photography, a passion from my youth, and found joy in capturing the beauty of the world around me. I joined a local hiking group, exploring nature and meeting new people who shared my interests. Rebuilding my social life was another important step. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones, expanding my support network. Socializing helped me regain my confidence and reminded me that there was a world beyond the pain of my failed marriage. I attended events, joined clubs, and even tried my hand at online dating, albeit cautiously. The dating world had changed significantly since I was last single, and navigating it was both exciting and daunting. I met a variety of people, each with their own stories and experiences. Some dates were pleasant, others less so, but each one taught me something about myself and what I was looking for in a partner. One particular date stands out in my memory. We met at a quaint cafe, and the conversation flowed easily. She was kind, witty, and shared many of my interests. As we talked, I felt a connection that I hadn't experienced in a long time. We went on several more dates, each one reinforcing the feeling that there was potential for something special. Our relationship grew slowly, but steadily. We took our time getting to know each other, building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. I was more mindful of my own needs and boundaries, ensuring that I didn't lose myself in the relationship as I had in the past. She appreciated my honesty and reciprocated with her own, creating a space where we could both be vulnerable and open. As our bond deepened, I found myself reflecting on the lessons I had learned from my previous marriage. I was determined not to repeat the same mistakes. Communication became a priority, and we made sure to address any issues or concerns as they arose. We supported each other's dreams and ambitions, understanding the importance of individual growth within a partnership. There were moments of doubt and fear, remnants of the trauma I had experienced. But with her patience and understanding, I learned to trust again. She never pressured me, allowing me to heal at my own pace. Her kindness and compassion were a balm to my wounded heart. One evening, as we sat together watching the sunset, I realized how far I had come. The pain of the past no longer held me captive. I was able to appreciate the beauty of the present and look forward to the future with hope and optimism. Our relationship felt different from anything I had experienced before. It was built on a solid foundation of trust, respect, and genuine affection. As time went on, we talked about our future together. Unlike my previous relationship, these discussions were filled with excitement and mutual understanding. We shared our dreams and aspirations, making plans that aligned with both of our visions for the future. It was a partnership in the truest sense of the word, and I felt grateful for the chance to experience such a deep and meaningful connection. Through my journey, I learned the importance of resilience and self-awareness. The experience of betrayal and heartbreak had been painful, but it had also been a catalyst for growth and transformation. I emerged from the ordeal with a clearer understanding of myself and what I wanted in life and love. I often thought about my ex-wife, wondering if she had found the happiness she was searching for. There were moments when I felt a twinge of regret, but I knew that our paths had diverged for a reason. We had both needed to learn and grow, and our separation had been a necessary part of that process. Years later, I could finally look back on my experience with a sense of clarity and acceptance. The pain and betrayal that had once consumed me were now distant memories, lessons learned along the winding road of life. I had found peace within myself and built a life that I was proud of. My new relationship continued to flourish. We supported each other through life's challenges, celebrating the highs and navigating the lows together. We traveled, explored new hobbies, and created a home filled with love and laughter. The intimacy and connection we shared were unlike anything I had known before, a testament to the growth and healing we had both experienced. In moments of quiet reflection, I often thought about the journey that had brought me here. The heartache and turmoil of my past had shaped me into a more resilient and self-aware individual. I had learned to appreciate the importance of emotional intimacy, communication, and mutual respect in a relationship. These were the pillars that now supported the love I had found. My ex-wife remained a figure in my past, a chapter that had closed but left its mark. I occasionally heard about her through mutual friends, snippets of her life that made their way back to me. She had remarried, pursuing her career with the same determination that had once driven her away from me. I hoped she had found the fulfillment she was searching for, and I wished her well. The lessons I had learned extended beyond my romantic relationships. They influenced how I approached friendships, work, and even my relationship with myself. I became more attuned to my own needs and boundaries, understanding the importance of self-care and self-love. I learned to value the people who supported and uplifted me, and to let go of those who did not. One of the most profound realizations was the importance of forgiveness. Forgiving my ex-wife was not about condoning her actions, but about freeing myself from the bitterness and resentment that had weighed me down. It was a difficult and gradual process, but ultimately, it allowed me to move forward with a lighter heart. Forgiving myself was equally important. I had made mistakes, failed to see the signs, and allowed my insecurities to fester. But I was also a victim of circumstances beyond my control. Learning to forgive myself was a crucial step in my healing journey, allowing me to embrace the future without the burden of guilt and regret. My career continued to thrive, and I found new purpose and satisfaction in my work. The challenges I had faced had made me more empathetic and resilient, qualities that served me well in my professional life. I took on leadership roles, mentoring younger colleagues and sharing the lessons I had learned about perseverance and self-awareness. As I looked to the future, I felt a sense of optimism and excitement. Life had taught me that while we cannot always control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond. We can choose to let adversity break us, or we can choose to let it shape us into stronger, wiser individuals. I was grateful for the journey, for the pain and the growth it had brought. It had not been an easy path, but it had led me to a place of peace and fulfillment. I had found love again, but more importantly, I had found myself. The experience taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. It made me realize the importance of choosing a life partner carefully, of nurturing the relationship and not taking it for granted. I learned that true happiness comes from within, from being true to oneself and embracing the journey, no matter how difficult it may be. In the end, I emerged from the ordeal stronger and wiser. I was ready to embrace the future, to build a new life filled with hope, love, and possibility. And as I looked back on my journey, I knew that I had grown, that I had become the person I was meant to be. When I first met her, it was as if I had stepped into a dream. She was the kind of woman men fantasize about. Stunningly beautiful, with a warm smile that could melt the iciest heart, and an effortless grace that made everything she did seem like an art form. We were young, full of hope and promise, and the world seemed wide open to us. Our early years together were nothing short of magical. She cooked like a professional chef, filling our home with the tantalizing aromas of gourmet meals that she seemed to whip up effortlessly. Our sex life was equally fantastic. There was an electric chemistry between us that kept us coming back to each other with a kind of hunger that never seemed to wane. We would often find ourselves lost in passionate moments, feeling closer than ever before. It was as if our bodies were perfectly attuned to each other's desires and rhythms. As time went on, our life together settled into a comfortable routine. We bought a charming house in a quiet suburb, and our days were filled with the simple joys of domestic bliss. On weekends, we'd host barbecues for friends and family, enjoying the laughter and camaraderie that came with these gatherings. We made plans for the future, talking about kids, vacations, and growing old together. For a long time, it felt like nothing could go wrong. Then, things began to change. It was subtle at first. A missed dinner here, a vague excuse there. She started coming home late more frequently, always with some plausible reason. Work was demanding, she'd say, or she had to help a friend. I wanted to believe her, to trust that our bond was as strong as ever. But doubt began to creep in, like a slow poison seeping through my veins. Her behavior grew more erratic. She'd be distant and cold one moment, then overly affectionate the next. I'd catch her on her phone, quickly ending calls or hiding the screen when I walked into the room. I started noticing changes in her appearance, too. She'd spend more time getting ready, buying new clothes, wearing more makeup. It was like she was trying to impress someone, but it certainly wasn't me. The first time I confronted her about it, she laughed it off, accusing me of being paranoid. "You're imagining things," she said, her tone light but her eyes hard. "You're working too much. You need to relax." I wanted to believe her, so I did. I buried my suspicions, convincing myself that I was being irrational. But the signs became too glaring to ignore. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden disinterest in our life together. It all pointed to one thing. I started to piece together a narrative that I couldn't escape from. I felt like a detective in my own home, searching for clues to confirm what my heart already knew. One night she came home later than usual, her hair disheveled, the smell of another man's cologne faintly clinging to her clothes. She tried to slip into bed quietly, but I was awake, the turmoil in my mind keeping sleep at bay. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice sounding foreign and hollow. "Out with friends," she replied, not meeting my eyes. There was a pause, a heavy silence that spoke volumes. I could see the guilt etched on her face, the way her hands trembled slightly as she pulled the covers up. It was in that moment that I knew, without a doubt, that she was cheating on me. The days that followed were a blur of arguments and accusations. She denied everything at first, but my persistence wore her down. Eventually, she admitted to the affair, though she tried to downplay it, saying it was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, but her eyes betrayed her. There was a flicker of something there, a coldness that made my blood run cold. We sat down to talk about our future, a conversation that felt surreal given the circumstances. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you do it?" She hesitated, her eyes avoiding mine. "I don't know," she said finally. "I guess I just wanted more excitement, more passion. Our life, it started to feel mundane." "Mundane?" I repeated, incredulous. "We had a good life. A great life, even. I thought we were happy." "I know," she said softly. "But I needed more. I need more." Her words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the chasm that had grown between us. In the end, we decided to divorce. It was a painful process, a slow unraveling of the life we had built together. We divided our possessions, our memories, our dreams. She got the house, the car, most of our savings. I didn't fight her on it. I just wanted it to be over. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. After she left, I spiraled into a dark place. The betrayal cut deep, and I found solace at the bottom of a bottle. Nights blurred into days, and I lost myself in the haze of alcohol. Friends and family tried to reach out, offering their support and advice, but I pushed them away. I wanted to be alone with my pain, to wallow in it. One night, after too many drinks, I found myself driving aimlessly through the city. I ended up at a bar, the kind of place where lost souls gather to drown their sorrows. I sat at the counter, nursing a whiskey, when an older man took the seat next to me. He looked like he'd seen his fair share of heartache, his eyes weary but kind. "Rough night?" he asked, his voice rough but gentle. "You could say that," I replied, taking another sip of my drink. "Want to talk about it?" I hesitated, then shrugged. "What's the point? She's gone. She chose someone else." He nodded, as if he understood all too well. "It hurts like hell, doesn't it? But you know what? You'll get through it. We all do." "How?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How do you move on from something like this?" "One day at a time," he said simply. "One day at a time." His words stuck with me. The road to healing was long and hard, but slowly I started to find my way back. I quit drinking, got a therapist, and started to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain felt unbearable, when the memories would flood back and I'd feel like I was drowning all over again. But I kept going, one day at a time. I began to see her in a different light. She wasn't the angel I had once thought her to be. She was human, flawed, driven by desires and insecurities that I couldn't comprehend. She had chosen a different path, one that prioritized material possessions and superficial thrills over the deep connection we once shared. There were moments when I saw her around town. She always looked put together, her smile bright but empty. Occasionally our eyes would meet, and there would be a flicker of something, regret perhaps, or maybe just recognition of what we had lost. But those moments were fleeting, and she'd quickly turn away, resuming her charade of the perfect life. In the years that followed, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. I focused on my career, threw myself into hobbies that I had neglected, and reconnected with friends and family. Slowly but surely, I started to feel whole again. I even started dating, though it was a cautious process. The scars of betrayal ran deep, and I was wary of letting anyone get too close. Through it all, I learned a valuable lesson about choosing a life partner. It wasn't enough for someone to be beautiful or to share common interests. It was about finding someone who valued the same things I did, who prioritized loyalty, trust, and mutual respect. Someone who was willing to weather the storms of life together, rather than seeking solace in the arms of another at the first sign of trouble. One evening, years after the divorce, I ran into an old friend at a coffee shop. We sat down to catch up, and the conversation inevitably turned to my ex-wife. "I saw her the other day," he said, his tone casual. "She didn't look happy." "Really?" I replied, not sure how to feel about that. "Yeah, she was with some guy, but they looked like they were fighting. She seemed different. I nodded, a part of me feeling a pang of satisfaction. But it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of pity. She had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. I had made mine too, and I was finally at peace with them. Years passed, and life slowly resumed a sense of normalcy. I had a new job that I loved, friends who supported me, and hobbies that brought me joy. My heart still bore the scars of betrayal, but they no longer defined me. I had learned to live with them, to let them be a part of my story without letting them overshadow it. It was during this period of rebuilding that I met someone new. She was different from my ex-wife in almost every way. Kind, grounded, and with a genuine warmth that drew me in. Our relationship started slowly, both of us cautious and tentative, wary of rushing into something that might lead to more heartache. Our first date was simple but meaningful. We met at a small coffee shop and spent hours talking about our lives, our dreams, and our fears. There was an openness between us that felt refreshing. She had her own scars, her own past hurts, and we bonded over our shared experiences of loss and healing. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. As our relationship deepened, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't thought possible. I told her about my marriage, the betrayal, the pain. She listened with empathy, never judging, always understanding. It felt good to be vulnerable again, to let someone see the parts of me that I'd kept hidden for so long. One evening, as we sat on my porch watching the sunset, she turned to me and asked, "Do you ever think about her?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not in the way you might think. It's more like a distant memory, a reminder of how far I've come." She nodded, her hand gently squeezing mine. "You've been through a lot. It's okay to have those memories. They're a part of you, but they don't define you." Her words brought a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was a reminder that the past, while painful, had also led me to this moment. It had shaped me, taught me valuable lessons, and ultimately, it had brought me to her. We continued to build our life together, one day at a time. There were still challenges, trust issues that needed to be addressed, fears that had to be confronted. But we faced them together, with patience and understanding. She was patient with me, allowing me the time and space to heal at my own pace. Through this new relationship, I also started to see my ex-wife in a different light. She was no longer the villain in my story, but a flawed human being who had made mistakes. I couldn't forgive her for what she had done, but I could let go of the anger and bitterness that had held me captive for so long. I realized that holding on to that resentment only hurt me. It kept me tied to the past, preventing me from fully embracing the present and the future. By letting go, I freed myself to truly move on, to open my heart to the possibilities that lay ahead. One day, as I was cleaning out an old drawer, I came across a photo of us from our wedding day. We looked so happy, so full of hope and promise. I felt a pang of sadness for the life that could have been, but also a sense of closure. That chapter of my life was over, and I was ready to move forward. I framed the photo and put it away in a box of mementos. It was a reminder of where I had been, of the lessons I had learned, but it was also a symbol of my resilience, of my ability to rebuild and find happiness again. As the years went by, I continued to grow and evolve. I found joy in the simple things: a quiet evening at home, a walk in the park, a shared laugh with a friend. I learned to appreciate the present moment, to savor the small victories and let go of the past. My relationship with my new partner blossomed into something beautiful and enduring. We supported each other through thick and thin, celebrating our successes and comforting each other in times of need. We built a life together based on trust, respect, and mutual love. Years after the divorce, my life had found a new rhythm. I had a stable job, a circle of supportive friends, and a relationship that brought me joy and fulfillment. The scars from the past were still there, but they had faded, becoming a part of the tapestry of my life rather than the defining feature. One evening, as I was enjoying a quiet night at home, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, I was surprised to hear my ex-wife's voice on the other end. She sounded different, more subdued, almost regretful. Hi, she began, hesitantly. I hope it's okay that I called. I've been thinking a lot about the past, about us. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. Her apology caught me off guard. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. It's been a long time, I said finally, but I appreciate you saying that. I've made a lot of mistakes, she continued. I thought that material things and excitement would make me happy, but I've realized that I was wrong. I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry for that. Her words, though belated, felt sincere. I had long since stopped expecting an apology from her, so hearing it now was unexpected but strangely liberating. We were both different people back then, I replied. We've both moved on. Yes, she agreed. But I wanted you to know that I regret the way things ended. I hope you've found happiness. I have, I said, a sense of peace settling over me. And I hope you have too. We exchanged a few more polite words before ending the call. As I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Her apology didn't change the past, but it allowed me to close that chapter with a sense of finality. Life continued to move forward. My relationship with my partner grew deeper and more meaningful. We faced the ups and downs together, always communicating openly and honestly. There were no secrets, no hidden agendas, just a mutual commitment to making our relationship work. One sunny afternoon, we decided to take a trip to the beach. As we walked along the shore, hand in hand, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. The ocean stretched out before us, vast and limitless, a symbol of the future that lay ahead. I'm glad we met, she said, squeezing my hand. I can't imagine my life without you. Me too, I replied, feeling a surge of gratitude. You've helped me heal in ways I never thought possible. We stood there for a while, letting the waves wash over our feet, the sun warming our skin. It was a perfect moment, a reminder of the beauty that life could offer even after the darkest of times. As we made our way back to our spot on the sand, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. It hadn't been easy, and there had been times when I had doubted whether I would ever find happiness again. But standing there with her, I realized that everything I had been through had led me to this moment. The lessons I had learned from my past relationship were invaluable. They had taught me the importance of choosing a partner who shared my values, who valued trust and loyalty above all else. They had shown me that true happiness wasn't found in material possessions or fleeting thrills, but in the quiet moments of connection and understanding. In the years that followed, I continued to build a life that was rich and fulfilling. I pursued my passions, nurtured my relationships, and always strived to be the best version of myself. There were still challenges, of course. Life was never without its obstacles, but I faced them with a newfound strength and resilience. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the experience had changed me in profound ways. It had stripped away the illusions and forced me to confront the truth about myself and my relationships. It had taught me to value the things that truly mattered and to let go of the rest. The years following my divorce marked the beginning of a new chapter, one characterized by self-discovery, personal growth, and unexpected opportunities. My journey, though fraught with the lingering shadows of betrayal and heartache, gradually transformed into a narrative of resilience and renewal. Initially, life without her felt strange and empty. The house, once filled with the warmth of shared moments and laughter, seemed vast and silent. I moved to a smaller apartment, a cozy place that suited my new life. It was a fresh start, a blank canvas on which I could paint my future. My focus shifted towards my career. I poured myself into my work, finding solace in the structure and purpose it provided. Late nights at the office and new projects kept my mind occupied. I embraced the challenges and thrived professionally, earning a promotion and the respect of my colleagues. Work became a sanctuary, a place where I could escape from the echoes of my past. In my free time, I revisited old hobbies and discovered new passions. I joined a local hiking club, finding peace and clarity in nature. The long walks through forest trails and up mountain paths offered not only physical exercise, but also a meditative space where I could reflect and heal. Photography became a newfound interest, capturing the beauty of landscapes and the subtle details of everyday life. It was a way to see the world through a different lens, appreciating the moments I had once overlooked. My social life also saw a resurgence. Friends, old and new, played a crucial role in my recovery. They pulled me out of my solitude, inviting me to gatherings, dinners, and outings. I reconnected with people I had lost touch with and formed new bonds. One friend in particular became a close confidant. He had gone through a similar experience and offered invaluable advice and support. We spent hours talking about our lives, our regrets, and our hopes for the future. As time passed, I started to feel a desire to travel. The idea of exploring new places, meeting new people, and experiencing different cultures excited me. I took a sabbatical from work and embarked on a journey that took me across continents. From the bustling streets of Tokyo to the serene beaches of Greece, each destination brought its own unique experiences and lessons. Traveling alone was empowering. It taught me self-reliance and the joy of my own company. During my travels, I met fascinating individuals from all walks of life. One encounter, in particular, left a lasting impression. In a small cafe in Paris, I struck up a conversation with an elderly man who had been married for over 50 years. His stories of love, loss, and perseverance were both inspiring and humbling. Love is not always easy, he told me, but it's worth fighting for. His words resonated deeply, reminding me that despite my past, I still believed in love and its transformative power. Returning home, I felt rejuvenated and more at peace with myself. I had shed the weight of bitterness and regret, embracing a future full of possibilities. My new outlook on life extended to my relationships as well. I was no longer afraid to open up and be vulnerable. Dating, which had seemed daunting, now felt like an exciting adventure. I approached it with a sense of curiosity and openness, eager to meet someone who shared my values and passions. One evening, while attending a friend's art exhibition, I met a woman who intrigued me. She was intelligent, compassionate, and had a genuine zest for life. We talked for hours, discovering shared interests and values. Our connection was immediate and undeniable. She had her own story of heartache and resilience, and together we found comfort and strength in each other. Our relationship blossomed naturally, built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. We took our time, allowing our bond to grow organically. There were no grand gestures or rushed declarations, just a steady, deepening connection. We supported each other's dreams and ambitions, always communicating openly and honestly. She understood my past without judgment, and I respected hers. Together, we created a safe space where we could be our true selves. As our relationship deepened, we began to discuss the future. Unlike my previous marriage, our conversations were grounded in reality, marked by a shared vision and mutual understanding. We talked about our goals, our fears, and our hopes. We acknowledged the challenges we might face, but were committed to facing them together. Our love was not about escapism or idealization. It was about partnership and growth. Eventually, we decided to move in together. It was a significant step, one that felt right. Our home became a place of warmth and laughter, a sanctuary from the outside world. We blended our lives seamlessly, each of us bringing our unique strengths and quirks into the relationship. We hosted dinners, traveled together, and built a life that was rich and fulfilling. Looking back, I realized how far I had come since the divorce. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had shaped me into the person I was meant to be. I had learned to value the things that truly mattered: trust, respect, and genuine connection. I had discovered my own resilience and the importance of self-love. Life after divorce was not the end, but a new beginning. It was a chance to rediscover myself, to heal, and to grow. It was an opportunity to build a life that was authentic and meaningful. And in the process, I had found a love that was real and enduring, a partnership that was based on mutual respect and understanding. The scars of my past were still there, but they no longer defined me. They were a part of my story, a testament to my strength and resilience. And as I looked towards the future, I did so with hope and optimism, ready to embrace whatever came next. The journey had been worth it, and I was grateful for every step. My name is Mark Anderson, and if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have said my life was nothing short of perfect. I had a beautiful wife, Linda, who could have stepped out of a fairy tale. Our home was warm and inviting, the kind of place where the aroma of freshly baked bread often lingered thanks to Linda's culinary talents. Our sex life was passionate, the envy of our friends, and our daily life together was filled with laughter and shared dreams. Linda and I had been married for 7 years. We met in college, where her radiant smile and sharp wit captivated me. She was a business major, and I was studying engineering. We complemented each other in every way, from our personalities to our professional aspirations. After graduation, we built a life together, gradually climbing the corporate ladder while supporting each other through the highs and lows. Our relationship was the stuff of dreams. Weekends spent exploring new cities, intimate dinners by candlelight, and spontaneous getaways kept the spark alive. Linda's beauty was timeless, and she took pride in maintaining her appearance. She was my muse, my confidant, my partner in every sense of the word. Linda had always been the life of the party, with a charisma that drew people to her effortlessly. Her laughter was contagious, and she had a way of making everyone feel special and valued. This was one of the many qualities that had attracted me to her in the first place. Our friends often joked that we were the perfect couple, the ones who had it all figured out. And for a long time it felt like they were right. We built our lives together in a charming suburban neighborhood. Our house, a modest yet cozy 2-story home, was filled with memories. Photos of our travels adorned the walls, and our weekends were spent gardening, cooking together, or hosting dinner parties. Linda's culinary skills were legendary among our friends, and her dinners were always a highlight of any gathering. She had a talent for creating meals that were not only delicious, but also a feast for the eyes. Our intimacy was another cornerstone of our relationship. We shared a deep connection that went beyond physical attraction. Our moments together were filled with passion, tenderness, and a sense of completeness that I cherished. It felt as though we were perfectly in sync, understanding each other's needs and desires without words. This bond made the subsequent betrayal all the more devastating. It started subtly. Linda began working late more frequently, citing urgent projects and last-minute meetings. At first, I didn't think much of it. Her job in marketing was demanding, and I trusted her completely. But soon there were other signs. She seemed distracted, her phone always buzzing with messages she was quick to dismiss. Our conversations grew shorter, our laughter less frequent. One evening, Linda came home later than usual. I had prepared her favorite dinner, a gesture that usually brought a smile to her face and a warm embrace. But that night, she barely touched her food, claiming she had already eaten with colleagues. She seemed distant, lost in her thoughts, and retired early to bed, leaving me alone with my growing unease. As the weeks passed, these moments of distance and distraction became more frequent. Linda's late nights at work turned into weekends away for conferences and business trips that seemed to pop up unexpectedly. Each time she left, a part of me felt a growing unease. I tried to rationalize it, convincing myself that her career was simply demanding more of her time. But deep down, the seeds of doubt had been planted. Our interactions at home became strained. Linda was no longer the lively, engaging partner I had known. She seemed preoccupied, her mind elsewhere even when we were together. She started to avoid eye contact, and our conversations became superficial, lacking the depth and connection we once shared. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home, an unwelcome guest in our once vibrant relationship. One night, after another late return, Linda's phone buzzed incessantly with messages. She glanced at the screen, her expression one of annoyance mixed with anxiety, and quickly silenced it. I couldn't help but feel a surge of suspicion. Who was so eager to reach her at such an hour? And why did she seem so secretive about it? Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. The turning point came one Saturday afternoon. Linda was out with friends, or so she said, and I decided to tidy up the house. While cleaning our bedroom, I found a receipt for an expensive restaurant I knew we had never visited together. The date on the receipt was one of those nights she claimed to be working late. A knot tightened in my stomach. I tried to push the suspicion away, to believe in the woman I had vowed to love and trust. But the doubts kept gnawing at me. I began to notice other things, her sudden interest in her appearance before heading out, the way she guarded her phone, and the fact that she seemed more engaged in her conversations with friends than with me. Unable to shake off the feeling, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I started by checking her phone while she was in the shower. It was locked, of course, but I managed to guess her password after a few attempts. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Messages from a man named Greg, filled with flirtatious banter and plans to meet. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the texts, my heart pounding in my chest. The shock of discovering those messages left me reeling. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved, the one I had shared my life with, could betray me like this. But rather than confront her immediately, I decided to gather more evidence. I needed to be certain, to understand the full extent of her infidelity. I began to notice patterns in her behavior. Linda's sudden urgency to leave the house, the mysterious phone calls she took in private, and the frequent text messages all pointed to something more than just a demanding job. I started following her discreetly, noting the places she visited and the time she spent there. I installed a tracking app on her phone, something I never thought I would do, but desperation had driven me to extremes. Days turned into weeks, and my suspicions were confirmed time and again. I followed her to the same upscale restaurant, watching from a distance as she laughed and flirted with Greg. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak, but I knew I needed a solid plan before confronting her. Each sight of them together was like a dagger to my heart, but I steeled myself, determined to gather irrefutable proof. I took photos of them together, capturing their intimate moments from a distance. I recorded their conversations whenever I could, using a small digital recorder I had purchased for this purpose. I even hired a private investigator to follow Linda when I couldn't, ensuring that I had a comprehensive record of her activities. The investigator's report was thorough, documenting their meetings and even providing additional evidence I hadn't been able to gather myself. My findings painted a clear picture of their affair. They met regularly, often during the times Linda claimed to be at work or with friends. Their messages were filled with plans for the future, declarations of affection, and details of their clandestine meetings. It was evident that this wasn't a fleeting fling but a full-blown relationship. Each new piece of evidence felt like a betrayal anew. The woman I had loved and trusted was leading a double life, and every proof of her infidelity deepened the wound. Yet, I remained calm, methodical. I wanted to make sure that when I confronted her, there would be no room for denial or excuses. I wanted her to face the full weight of her actions. I compiled all the evidence into a detailed dossier, organizing it chronologically. Photos, text messages, recordings, and the private investigator's report were all included. It was a painstaking process, one that required me to relive the pain of her betrayal repeatedly. But it also strengthened my resolve, reinforcing my decision to see this through to the end. During this period, I confided in a few close friends, seeking their advice and support. Their reactions were a mix of shock, anger, and sympathy. They urged me to confront Linda, to not let her continue deceiving me, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to be fully prepared, both emotionally and strategically. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. It was a quiet Tuesday evening when I finally decided to confront Linda. I had gathered enough evidence, photos, messages, even recordings of their conversations. I waited until she was home, sitting across from her at the dinner table. "Linda, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She looked up, surprised. "What about Mark?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words I was about to utter. "I know about Greg." Her face paled, and for a moment, she was speechless. Then she tried to deny it, but I cut her off, laying out the evidence in front of her. She stared at the photos, the printouts of messages, and the recordings, her eyes wide with shock. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would you do this to us?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. She had betrayed me, shattered the trust we had built over the years. She tried to explain, to justify her actions, but her words sounded hollow. She spoke of feeling neglected, of our lives drifting apart, but all I could see were the lies and deceit. The confrontation escalated quickly. Linda went from denial to anger, accusing me of invading her privacy and betraying her trust. It was a surreal moment, her attempt to turn the tables on me, but I stood firm, presenting the irrefutable evidence of her infidelity. I decided not to make a scene, not to throw accusations and insults. Instead, I began to think through an insidious plan to dismantle the life we had built together, piece by piece. I wanted her to feel the pain and betrayal I had felt. First, I filed for divorce without telling her. I met with a lawyer and outlined everything, making sure I had a solid case. I blocked access to our joint bank accounts, redirecting the funds to an account in my name. I sold off her expensive clothes, jewelry, and personal items, donating the proceeds to charity. I spent our general savings on myself, indulging in things I had always wanted but had put off for the sake of our future together. I took a solo trip to Europe, staying in luxury hotels and dining at the finest restaurants. Each day away felt like a small victory, a step towards reclaiming my life. Back home, I began to dismantle the life we had built together. I sold our house, the place that had been filled with so many memories, and moved into a smaller apartment. I changed my phone number, cutting off all contact with Linda and anyone who might side with her. It was a drastic move, but I needed a fresh start, free from the shadows of our past. When Linda found out about the divorce, she was furious. She accused me of betrayal, of acting without considering her feelings. But her words had lost their power over me. I remained calm, reminding her of her own actions, her infidelity that had led us to this point. We had countless arguments, filled with insults and harsh words. She tried to make amends, to win me back, but I stood my ground. I was determined to see my plan through, to destroy the foundations she had built on lies and deceit. I cut her off from our mutual friends, making sure they knew the truth about her betrayal. Slowly but surely, I dismantled every aspect of her life that we had built together. Our friends and family were shocked. Some took her side, believing her sob story of a husband gone rogue. But those who knew the truth stood by me, offering support and advice. My parents were particularly supportive, reminding me that I deserved better, that I deserved honesty and loyalty. Linda's attempts to salvage our relationship grew desperate. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, begging for forgiveness. She sent long emotional messages, recounting the good times and promising to change. But I was resolute. The trust had been broken, and there was no going back. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Linda fought for everything, trying to salvage whatever she could. But I had anticipated her moves, ensuring that I came out on top. I kept the house, the car, and most of our savings. She was left with little, forced to start over from scratch. In the end, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. I had turned the tables, made her feel the pain of betrayal and loss. But it was a hollow victory, one that left me questioning my own morals and actions. Revenge had consumed me, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. As the legal battle dragged on, I maintained my composure, treating each court appearance as a necessary step towards closure. Linda's attempts to paint herself as the victim only fueled my resolve. I had the evidence, the truth on my side, and I made sure it was presented clearly and effectively. The day the divorce was finalized felt anticlimactic. There were no dramatic confrontations, no final words exchanged, just the cold, impersonal signatures on legal documents that severed our bond. I walked out of the courthouse feeling a mixture of relief and emptiness, unsure of what lay ahead but determined to move forward. Months passed, and the dust settled. I moved on, focusing on my career and rebuilding my life. I sought therapy, working through the anger and pain, and gradually began to heal. I realized that while Linda's betrayal had shattered my world, it had also given me a chance to rediscover myself. I reconnected with old friends, rekindling relationships that had been neglected during my marriage. I threw myself into my work, taking on new challenges and responsibilities. My career flourished, and I found a sense of purpose and fulfillment that had been missing for a long time. Linda tried to contact me a few times, seeking closure or perhaps reconciliation. But I ignored her messages, choosing to leave the past behind. I had learned a hard lesson about trust and betrayal, one that would stay with me forever. I began to travel more, exploring places I had always wanted to visit. Each new destination was a step towards healing, a reminder that life could still be beautiful and full of possibilities. I met new people, formed new connections, and slowly but surely, I rebuilt my sense of self. Now, as I sit here recounting my story, I can't help but wonder about the choices I made. Was I right to seek revenge? To dismantle her life as she had mine? Or did I lose a part of myself in the process, letting anger and bitterness dictate my actions? I ask you, dear reader, for your opinion. What would you have done in my place? How would you have handled the betrayal, the heartbreak? My story is one of love lost and lessons learned, a cautionary tale of trust and the consequences of infidelity. I often reflect on the choices I made, the steps I took to reclaim my life. Some days I feel a sense of pride in my resilience, in my ability to rise above the betrayal and rebuild. Other days, I wonder if I let the darkness of revenge consume too much of me, if there was a better way to handle the situation. In sharing my story, I hope to find some clarity, to gain new perspectives on the events that transpired. Perhaps there are lessons to be learned, wisdom to be gained from my experiences. I invite you to share your thoughts, your advice, and your own stories of love and loss. Together, we can navigate the complexities of relationships, the pain of betrayal, and the journey towards healing.